Hey guys, it's Carla. Today I'm starting with my raw sienna background and I've got my outline sketched on. So the first thing I want to do with a flat synthetic brush is mix up a really dark green shade. And I put a little bit of water in it. And I just want to put this base color on back here in the for those background trees. And then I'll add more green to it. I still want a little bit of black in it, but with a hog bristle brush, just a filbert hog bristle brush, I'm just tapping in some, just kind of the indication of some greenery back there. But I don't want it real distinct because this is way in the back and it just needs to be very subtle. So now with that same brush, I'm going to start on my water. And that's all I'm doing to the trees back there. So so now I'm going to start on my water. And with this hog bristle brush, I'm just going to kind of scrub it in. So I want to make sure that I don't leave a gap there between the black and the raw sienna. But other than that, this is just really carefree and messy. And if you water it down in places, then you'll get a thinner coating, and then leave it thicker in other places, and you'll have a lot of dimension and what do you call it? Interest, I guess, in the water. So I'm just doing different shades of green. Right here, I'm making it really dark, but not as dark as that original color back there in the trees. But I do want it to, I want to give it some different shades, I guess. And then right back here where the trees start, I want that to be very soft. So this is kind of a transition color between the watercolor and the tree color. But I want to put some of it down into the water just to give it more interest. Now here's another shade. I'm putting several shades in the water just to add something to it. Don't want it too boring. So again, I'm still using that filbert hog bristle brush, and I'm just scrubbing this in. And I want to keep my brush strokes going horizontal with the bottom of the canvas. So don't go by this dock that he's sitting on, because then your water will look wonky. So you got to keep your brush strokes with the water, because water is level. You got to keep them horizontal. Don't let your mind tell you that they need to be diagonal just because that dock is. So on the dock, I just put in a base color and then some highlights on top of it. Still just using that hog bristle brush. All right, now I'm mixing up a shade for the, there's a little clump of weeds back there coming out of the water. And right now I'm still using my hog bristle brush, just the edge of the hog bristle brush. But I will come in with an angle brush, a synthetic angle brush, and put in a little more defined weeds back there. But right now it's still the hog bristle brush. Okay, so I put in some reflections, and now I'm putting in some kind of a base color for my weeds. It doesn't look like much right now, but you've got to trust the process. You've got to get these base colors in there. All right, now this is the angle brush, the synthetic angle brush, and I'm just using the edge of it to put in some sharper blades of grass. This is going to end up having, just this little clump of grass right here is going to end up having several shades on it. So as it dries, if it gets too dull, you can come back and put some brighter shades of green in there. And then this is just a little dirt spot. That it's sitting on, and some, I guess, reflection in the water or light hitting the water or something. Now I'm just adding another shade of like reflections in the water. Again, this just keeps it from being too boring. But again, keep your brush strokes horizontal. All right, now I've got to determine where my fishing line is hitting the water, and that's where I want this circle of these rings of water. So I'm just using a small round brush for this. All right, now I'm using a toothpick to put in my fishing line because it's going to be really thin. You might have to go over it several times. But then once you pull the ruler away, you can use a clean damp brush and just clean up the edges on both sides. And then I'm going to use the same technique with the rod, except I'm not using a toothpick, I'm using an synthetic angle brush. But that helps me to get that straight line. And then if I lay that right over the top of that dark color, I can come in with a light color and do the same thing, and that'll give me a highlight on the right side of the fishing rod. Brightening up my weeds again. Okay, now with plain white, with a small liner brush, I'm going to put some highlights on those rings of water. And then I'm just tapping in some little splashes. Now back to my toothpick, I'm going to kind of skip around and put some highlights on that fishing line, like the light is catching the wet line. And then same thing on the pole. I want some brighter highlights here and there. Okay, now I'm going to start on him, and I'm going to start with the hat. I'm just using a small flat synthetic brush for this. So whatever color I want my hat to be, I'm going to use the dark shade of that for those deeper, darker areas, and then just add white to it, and that way you've got the same color but just a different shade of that color for the rest of the hat. And you'll notice I'm leaving a lot of that raw sienna peeking through because I want this whole painting to be really loose. So I'm intentionally not painting anything solid. With a little bit darker shade, I want to darken. My light is coming from kind of from the upper right hand corner maybe, and so all this over here is more shaded. All right, now with the burnt sienna and white, I'm just mixing up a skin tone for his hands. To finish off that rod right there. So now there's some shading on the hands and between the fingers and stuff. So I don't want to get too detailed with this because, again, I want this painting to be really loose, but it does need to make sense. So I'm just using the small round synthetic brush to get in some very subtle details. So these are just highlights on the hands. So now I want to mix up a color for my shirt, and I can't tell you what color this is. It's just a bunch of colors mixed together. But I want a gray shade, some kind of gray shade, but you can make it whatever color you want. But I'm going to paint the whole thing with this color as my base color, and then I'll come back with my darker, with black, and kind of form the shape of the shirt, I guess. So right now that just looks like a big blob. But when I get the darker shade in, it will give the shirt its shape. But I'm keeping this really loose. It, again, needs to make sense, but I don't want to get too detailed with it. So just very loose shading. All right, now I just mixed up a base color for the pants. And again, you can make those any color you want, but I just need a base color in there so that I can put highlights on top of it where the sun is shining on it. Now with plain white, this is a small flat synthetic brush. I'm just gonna put in some really bright highlights because the brighter these highlights are, the more sunny it looks outside. And again, the sun is coming from the upper right corner, so this right here, his right shoulder is probably what's getting the most of it, so it's going to be really bright right there. And sometimes when you're painting, you got to keep in mind that painting is art, and art doesn't always make sense. You want it to make sense for the most part, but you got to remember that sometimes in order for it to look aesthetically pleasing, sometimes you have to put highlights maybe where they wouldn't naturally be, as long as you don't go overboard with it. It just helps to have it in certain places where maybe you need some distinction or definition. So now I'm just highlighting the dock. And then over here, it's darker because he's shading it. So that is it, guys. Hope you all enjoyed this, and thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and God bless you.